everyone, welcome to my channel. This is T Grows here, and today I'm going to be sharing with you guys how I set up my very first worm bin. But to get started, I just want to list out the things that I used to set up my worm bin, because the very first thing I used was, of course, get a container. For me, it was a 7-gallon tote, then also bedding, and the bedding included cardboard, shredded cardboard, um, newspaper, shredded paper, and then I also use cocoa core. You need dechlorinated water or tap water, which I'll be explaining later, and then you need a compost, and you need egg shells, and just a little bit of scrap. All right, so let's get to it. So the very first step I did, which I showed in my previous video, is that I soaked the cardboard, newspaper, shredded paper, all of them, shredded cardboard, all of it into water, and you want that soaking for at least 30 minutes. So while that was going on, I went ahead to start working on setting up my system. And the first thing I did was to measure the container, because I wanted the hole to start off 2 inches away from the top of the container. Why 2 inches? I'm not really sure, but that's what I researched, and that's what I decided to go with. And of course, the depth of the bedding should be about 6 inches from what I recollected. Alrighty, so why are we making holes? The reason why you want to make holes there is to allow for oxygen to go through into the container, because you don't want it compact and without airflow. The other thing is that does is that it allows for moisture, excessive moisture, to escape out of the bin. When there isn't proper airflow, what happens then? That odor and foul smell, we start getting that foul smell and all that good stuff, and that bad smell there is one of the signs that you know that your bedding needs to be checked. Alrighty, so this took me the whole setup took me about an hour 30 minutes to 2 hours. That's because I forgot some things and I had to run quickly to the store to get it. So once I was done with drilling the holes around the container, I did about 5 on the short end and maybe about 12 or so on the long end, and I used 1/8 size to drill the holes. Now I used a small hole because the worms can get into larger holes. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the size that they could possibly get in is anything like 1/4 and bigger. They would definitely escape through those holes. So you want the hole small enough that it allows oxygen to flow through, but not and but not no, sorry, big enough to allow oxygen flow through, but not big enough to allow the worms escape, because then you don't have a worm farm. So after I was done with that, the next thing you're gonna see is that I also made holes on the lid. All right, again, it's just for the same reason, for flow of oxygen. Now let's talk about the water that I used. Look at it, it's so beautiful, right, guys? Yeah, so let's talk about the water that I used. So when creating a worm bin, you want to use a water that's been dechlorinated. The reason why we have chlorine in our water is to kill microorganisms that would harm us if we ingested it. However, for a worm bin, we want a water and environment that allows those microorganisms to grow, because those are the microorganisms that are necessary to break down the food, the scrap that you put in there to get your castings. You know what I'm saying? So that is why you need water free from chlorine. In this case, if you don't want to go around buying water that is dechlorinated, in my case, I just allow the water to sit for about 24 hours, and that what that would do is that it will allow the chlorine to evaporate. Now, I didn't think it was so necessary to have it water dechlorinated. So in this case, like I said, it was 30 minutes after. Then I put everything in. So, but when I researched for them, my Facebook group, they were like, okay, since you already set the bedding, just go ahead and open up the lid and let it stay like that for 24 hours. That will get rid of the chlorine. So if you want from the get-go not use buy dechlorinated water, or go around looking for dechlorinated water, just put water, standing water, tap water, and let the chlorine evaporate into the atmosphere. Alrighty, so in terms of the beddings, now as you can see that I'm doing here, and by the way, guys, when you're squeezing out the water, you want the water to squeeze out such as a well wrunged out sponge. So when you squeeze it, it should be only a few drops left. You don't want to squeeze out everything, but enough that it has enough moisture. And I'm gonna tell you guys, this thing was hard chore, man. Squeezing, I was like, oh, it really played on my muscles. My husband had to come help, and soon enough, I just decided to sieve out the um the water. I sieved out the water, and then I started squeezing. So that's how we dealt with that. Now, the reason why we use the materials that I just mentioned, cardboard, newspaper, and all that, for the bedding is because it's carbon rich and it helps absorb any excess moisture that might be in your system, right? It also helps to improve airflow. So it's all about creating a good habitat for your worms. So that's why we use cardboard, newspaper, paper, either of those three. If you have, use cardboard. I find is nicer. It helps. It soaks up the water better. So I feel like it will retain moisture better than paper. Now the next thing that we use in our bedding, guys, is cocoa core. Now, cocoa core also is another material that helps to hold moisture and allows air to circulate nicely throughout your bedding. And that thing comes like a brick. You just put some water in there, and it breaks up. So I didn't want to put too much water because I'm like already squeezing out water. I'm like, I don't want to do extra work, so I put a little bit of water first, but then I had to go back and add water. So eventually, I can't really tell you specifically what amount of water to add because it was try and error. So, anyways, I did that. I squeezed out the water, and then I put it into the container, and then mixed it up with the current cardboard, newspaper, and stuff that was in there. The next thing that I had to do, which I had forgotten, was the compost. I didn't forget. I thought I had compost worm casting in my storage, but when I went there, I found out it was a sea starter. I was like, oh my goodness! So I quickly had to run to Home Depot around like almost 9 p.m. to get worm casting. Now, the reason you want to add compost into this environment is, again, it's all about microbes. Like you're starting off the environment that has all the organisms and stuff ready for your worm. So when they come, everything is kind of like set. Those microbes alongside the worms are what breaks down the scrap and helps the environment do what you want it to do, which is produce you those castings. Um, so subsequently, after I had gotten my worm casting, then I did the same thing. I applied it to the bedding, and mixed. Then I covered it up with the cardboard. So you want a cardboard that is kind of like the right size of your container, and that also helps again with moisture control. So when I was doing this, I completely forgot about the eggshells. So you will see that I had to do the eggshell the next day, okay? But no worries, my worms were not gonna be here until for the next week. But now I'm finding out 2 weeks. It's gonna be 2 weeks, not 1 week. But anyways, this is me when I'm making this video like a week after I created this. So I'm waiting right now for my worms. So in any case, getting back to the video, the next day I inserted the egg shells. Now, when you're putting in the eggshells, you want to ensure that the eggshell is well grinded, okay, finely grounded. In my case, I used my blender I used for my bunny compost back in the days when I had a bunny, and I would blend the compost. I used basically the same blender to blend the eggs. Now the blender didn't give me finely grinded, it does give me grinded, but you know what, I was like, we're just gonna roll with that, but it's supposed to be finely grinded. I spread it across the bed, and then I mixed it in. Now, why do we need to add eggshells? Also added some water, you guys can see, because when I checked, I'm like, oh my god, we over-wrunged out this water. My husband was squeezing the hell out. See how he was squeezing like he was squeezing clothes? So there was no water left inside the container, so I had to add some water inside. Anyways, so when I did why do we put eggshells in this whole system? The reason why we need eggshells is that it provides calcium, and also serves as grit to help the worms in grinding the food in their gizzard. Did you guys know that worms had gizzard? I did not know, but I found out that worms have gizzard, and that gizzard is what is helping them to break down the food, that the scrap we are giving them that will not give us compost. So I said, why shouldn't I give them eggshell? Everybody, make sure you're eating egg every day, so that we have eggshell for these worms when they come. And lastly, the food scrap. I added just one banana peel. And the reason I just added one banana peel is because you don't want the environment to be hot composted. You want it pre-compost, meaning that things are beginning to break down, but not breaking down that it's becoming a hot environment, because they didn't do well. The worms don't do well in hot environments. So I added one banana peel to get the environment started, and I dug it in there, not all the way at the bottom, but kind of in between, sandwich between the beddings on the top and beddings at the bottom. And that's pretty much it, guys. So right now we're just waiting for our worms. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, share, and subscribe. And if you are interested in starting your worm bin, comment below. I would love to hear. Or if you already have a worm bin, do so too.